morning, team. Welcome to the Run Ultra podcast. I am delighted to be joined today by Dr. Siobhan Brennan, who is a GP and a specialist in the menopause. I've asked her to join me because I have also asked Debbie Martin-Consani to join me because she put a post out recently about perimenopause and menopause. And it really struck home with me. And I think her words of wisdom and those of Siobhan's will, I feel and hope will help lots of women. As always, we are very kindly supported by Core Body Temperatures. Now, I do have Nick Hancock's review. It is on my long to-do list. I've just checked it, and he highly rates it. It has the same functionality as the Core one, but it is smaller and lighter. And one of the key factors about it is the clip. There's a new clip design which makes it much better staying on. Siobhan has entered the room, so I'm going to let her in. And without further ado, we shall start. Hi, Siobhan.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm tired. But that's just because I spent a long weekend in Ireland just doing very tricky, difficult stuff, which
I saw lovely pictures though, even if the flag
yeah,
was down. It looked a bit a bit nippy.
and it was. It's a mountain I've never done. It's absolutely stunning. But yeah, once we got to the top, it was like, there's no trail. It's like micro nav trying to get across the tops. Stop
Right.
it. I've got my cats here in the background. They're all just listening in intently. So just apologies if they start yelling and
Oh,
screeching.
bless.
Um, so yeah, no, it was good. It was good. But yeah, I think it was just every weekend I go home, I end up writing stuff. Hence the fact that I sent that through to you. So yeah, it's gone
Yes,
down
that's
well.
I think that's oh, I'll let Debbie in.
Go on, let her in.
Yeah,
Seems
I absolutely knew, and the moment I read it, we've all had DNFs, and I think there isn't a single person out there who won't feel what you've written down. Hi, Debbie, welcome.
Hello, how are you both?
Oh, we're
good,
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 thank you. Sorry, I
good.
didn't see Siobhan's thing
Oh, it's
about.
fine. I could use either or. I was just trying
Yeah.
to find this link.
I was just paranoid that I might get chucked out because I did like a podcast thing for Viridian Nutrition talking about weight loss medications, and apparently I was all pixelated out. Now that might be a good thing on a Monday morning, given how fucking knackered I am. But I thought mightn't be the best if we're trying to be interactive and whatnot. So yes,
Oh,
That's
brilliant.
fine. It seems to be working fine anyway. Can you hear me
grand.
okay? I'm never quite sure whether AirPods
Yes.
or audio on the
Yes. No,
laptop
I
is better.
can. I can. And I'm afraid, I mean, I've got no idea where my microphone or headphones are. They're
Yeah.
in they're in one of
Um,
many boxes.
oh God,
It's just
love
Oh,
you.
this is the box room for all the boxes I haven't unpacked yet.
Don't
oh
Um,
dear.
envy you. It'll be worth it. It'll be worth it.
yes, it is. Oh, it already is. It already is,
Have you
definitely.
moved house, Kate?
Yes. Yeah, 3 weeks ago. Actually, no,
Oh,
four this Thursday. Yeah.
yeah, we moved like nearly 2 years ago now. It feels like 5 minutes ago, right? We keep
Yeah.
using excuses for why the shower's dripping and shit. Like, yeah, we've just moved in, and then we're like, oh, actually, we haven't just moved in.
Yeah.
I
I
think I've
must
still
admit,
got deep trauma.
have you? Yeah, I mean that's it. You can carry me out with a box in a box from
Yeah,
here and
absolutely.
just
I'm never leaving.
yeah. I'm
Mhm.
never leaving. I'm not moving again or to shoot me. It's just the most horrific, awful process. It just seems to get worse every time I do it.
Yeah, I've not done it for a while, but certainly when I qualified as a doctor, your jobs tended to be like for 6 months or a year. So, like, my first job was the west coast of Ireland. My second job was in Dublin. My third job was up in Northern Ireland, and then London. It's
Oh
kind of in
wow.
great. I know. I
Yeah.
mean, it was horrible, but now I've got kids, and they have clutter, and they are clutter. They are clutter themselves. Um, they don't mind me saying that. But it's just the thought. I can't wait till they move out. They're old enough to move out, and I can get rid of all the crap because I am ruthless. And that's what I was spending I was over in Ireland this weekend, hence the fact that I was doing some rather tricky nav up a mountain,
Yeah.
just clearing out clutter for my parents because they've too much shit, and then they've stuff that they just wanted. They'd stuff that they wanted gone anyway. That was like my sister.
Yeah.
Hence the fact that I wrote that article I wrote. I was on the plane waiting to get in to go to my parents, and it just had to come out. So yeah, I've had loads of messages about it.
Have you? Have you read it, Debbie?
No, what is this? Tell me.
Oh,
Oh,
basically, I DNF'd on Challenger North in January, and I DNF'd last year as well. This year was broken ribs. Last year was some awful vomiting thing from drinking bog water, and it's fair to say I've had a fairly challenging couple of years. And I think my running and my attempts at Challenger North just defined everything for me. So when I didn't finish, I felt this huge sense of failure. And I think some of this taps into, when you talk about the menopause and how we identify as women. And basically I kept thinking, it took about 2 weeks for me to go, I failed, but I'm not a failure. And that's basically the key thing. So I just ended up just writing down kind of all of this, just dumping all this stuff. And then I got it tidied up, and then I sent it to Kate because I wasn't brave enough to post it myself. Because sometimes I think people go, "Oh, just shut up! You're just a boring middle-aged woman who just prattles on about things." And she shared it, and I've had messages from like people all over. It's just
Oh,
like,
send me it. I definitely want to read that. Sounds brilliant.
so yeah,
yeah.
it kind of when I first read it after I wrote it, I just thought, oh my God, I feel really close to tears here. It's just something that there's just a lot of stuff behind it, but actually it kind of just talks about the narrative about how we see ourselves, and I think that taps in quite well into
Yeah, it's just quite therapeutic, right?
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like, I don't know,
I think,
sometimes I really find it really hard to articulate what I feel verbally, but I can write it down and things come out much better
Yeah,
when you're writing it down as well.
I
Yeah,
think
send
so. Yeah.
well, if anyone listening, please go off and have a look. It's in the Run Ultra news section. Debbie, I'll send you a link
thanks.
after the podcast. But yes, yeah, it wasn't long, but I thought it was just very personal and very poignant, and I think would impact a lot of people, which it obviously has. So I'm glad people have reached out to you actually.
Mm. And I
But
think
obviously the reason we're here today is I saw your post, Debbie. Um,
Mm.
2026 Operation Unfuck Myself. And
Yeah,
again, this is another post that really struck a chord with me. And particularly about and that phrase, the magic you are looking for is in the work you are avoiding. Um, God, I
yeah, it's
hate
very
doing
powerful.
strength work.
It's just, no,
yeah.
it's not even that. It's just like
uh,
everything like
it's
I
just,
put on that post.
yeah.
I think I've kind of like buried myself over the last few years. I kind of know the things that I need to do and I don't do them. And I think I've just got myself in a rut. Like I can take it probably back to like early lockdown when I was 46 or something. And it wasn't until I was about 48 that I started thinking, all right, okay, I'm getting the symptoms of perimenopause. And I'm super lucky. I don't have all the key debilitating things. So I don't have night sweats, I don't have hot flushes, I haven't had weight gain. I think I've always had brain fog, so I can't even blame the menopause on that. But I think there's just things like um I think like the drop in estrogen is really attacking my tendons and the way that I feel. I think I once described it as like running in a wetsuit. Like there's nothing physically wrong with me. There's no area that's injured. It's just this tightness and this stiffness that I just can't explain. And I think I've just kind of got myself in a rut where I run in the morning, I'll do weight training at night. I think everyone got obsessed with everything Stacey Sims had to say. So I
Mm.
started weight training like 3 years ago. So I'm probably like the strongest that I've ever been. And from an aesthetic point of view, I don't think I've ever been as happy with the way I look, but I know the
Mhm.
way that I feel has just, I mean, I can't even explain how I feel, but I think just before New Year, I'd done this long run. It was like 20 miles. Any other day, year, I could have knocked out 20 miles and been absolutely fine. But as soon as I do like a couple of hours, just this tightness and this tension that's really debilitating. It affects how I enjoy runs, it affects how I move. And I just saw this video of me running and I was like, that looks excruciating, because it was excruciating. It was like all up my posterior, like my glutes, my hamstrings, all the way down. It's just this tightness that, and I just thought, I can't go on like that. Like, I can't not enjoy running anymore. And plus, when I do go and do ultras, I spend the whole time spewing. And that's something that's happened over the last few years as well. And I think a lot of people who are going through that perimenopause are just experiencing symptoms out with the normal night sweats and hot flushes that everyone is talking about. And then when I posted that, like, there was this outpouring of people
Mm,
like
mm,
explaining their situation or what they've been doing, or having no idea that perimenopause and the estrogen drop is going to have that knock-on effect on your muscles and your joints and your tendons. They just associate perimenopause with psychotic women who are very hot. And I
Yeah.
think, I think there's just so much out there, and it's all very well. Like, you can read as much books as you want, and you can see as much videos and posts about and read it. You can do is educate yourself. But I think real life experiences and talking to people who are experiencing things the same as you are, has
mm,
really helped. And I couldn't believe the amount of comments and shares and people just engaging with that post, because that's
yeah.
exactly how they feel.
I
It
think that's
resonates.
the key, isn't it? It's the symptoms which you don't necessarily think as symptoms. You just
Yeah,
think this is wrong, or I haven't been doing this or that, but actually it's down to a lack of estrogen or drop in hormones.
yeah, absolutely. But even things like itchy ears and frozen shoulder and all those
Yeah.
things, I think there's like literally hundreds of symptoms,
Mm,
that people just don't associate it, and they just think there's something wrong with them. And
mm.
I do think, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with me, but there's nothing right with me there, if that explains it. And I think everything just feels really hard, is the best way to describe it.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, I saw your post and I did respond. I don't tend to respond to lots of stuff, but it really struck a chord. And for me, my story is a wee bit different. I had some fairly radical, life-changing surgery at the age of 39, and I was thrust into a surgically induced menopause. And I'm a GP, kind of dealing with HRT is my bread and butter. But I remember as an undergraduate not really being taught anything about it
Hmm.
until I was then walking that journey. And I'll never forget saying to my gynecologist, "Where's the HRT when I'm going home?" And he was like, "Oh, just crack on. You do a bit of running, you'll be fine." And
Hmm.
that really angered me so much, because I think, it taps into how we see ourselves as women, our role in society, kind of how we tend to just juggle and manage so much and mask our inner turmoil. And I think with the menopause, it can be very insidious, where it just, it's very naughty. We know that the average age is 51, but actually it can creep in any time from our mid 40s. But there are some women, it'll happen in our 30s, and it'll present, as you say, with odd symptoms. And, as a GP, I've had women come in to me and just really, really upset, struggling with their mental health, feeling like they're having a nervous breakdown, being felt by society that they are having a nervous breakdown. And that expectation is they just need to get on with it. And it's a really unhelpful narrative. And there's still a lot of learning, I think, around the menopause. It is being taken much more seriously now. There is a lot more formative education. There's a lot of noise on social media. There are a lot of people who are highly trained professionals whose area of expertise is gynecology, but some of the noise and some of what they peddle and what they put their names to is very, very unhelpful. And it doesn't help us as women when we're trying to navigate through this really difficult phase in our lives. But it's a phase that I think sometimes, actually stepping back from all of that noise is actually much, much more important, in doing your own bit of research, but also kindness to self, I think, really has to come into it when we are in the midst of the menopause. I see it almost as like a multi-system disorder in that our estrogen just tails off. And estrogen affects everything from, as you mentioned, frozen shoulders to really, really tight tendons to our teeth, our gums. It's absolutely incredible how our hormones dictate so much for us. And also the big elephant in the room is that it dictates and it can hugely influence mood, motivation, how we identify, how we see ourselves. And it's just all a great big mixed up soup of symptoms. And for most women, it's a perfect storm when it arrives as well, because I'm older than both of you, but like, we're in that time in our lives when our parents are getting elderly, our kids are growing up, they're facing their own challenges. We have friends, we might have siblings who might have died. We are really, one of my friends said to me recently, we're all in Sniper Alley now. Very negative, but it really reinforces that we have an awful lot of challenges to face in this phase of our lives as women. And the burden that we shoulder, I think we've normalized as well, in that we are spinning so many plates, and that's the expectation of us as women. So it really is, it's a perfect storm. It really is a perfect storm.
Yeah. I
I'll,
think especially when you're talking to like generations before as well, like if you like my mother and my mother-in-law and my friends' mums and stuff, and like my best friend's mum's adamant she didn't get the menopause, which is just hilarious. She always says that. She goes, I didn't get the menopause. And, and then other people will be like, oh, we just got on with it. And I just think, that is, yeah, okay, you just got on with it, but your lives were not the same as what women's lives are now. So you were a stay-at-home mum and you didn't have
yeah,
a career and like sports and all that kind of thing as well. So there was definitely less plates.
Yes.
But I also think like the knock-on effect, I don't think they recognize, like if they address things that were happening during the menopause, they probably wouldn't have the health, mobility issues that they have when they're 70 and 80. And I think that's why now I want to address this, because I want to be super strong when I'm
Mhm.
70 and 80. And I just, I remind myself like, yeah, I'm not entirely comfortable going out running in the dark in the winter, but I'm way more scared of not being able to get off a chair when I'm 75 than I am of the bogeyman.
yeah,
So I think like addressing those things now, and yeah, generations ago, people got on with it. And I've heard expressions like people don't want to get HRT because they feel like they're cheating or they don't want to give into it, and expressions like that, which I know again, you talked about the noise. Yeah, there's some highly educated people who are, providing educational resources online, but there's also a lot of shite and there's a lot of
Yeah.
commercialization around menopause. I think like 20 years ago, there was a lot of commercialization around diet products, and menopause products seem to be the new diet products now that we've found weight loss jabs.
yeah,
Things like
Yeah.
menopause chocolate and menopause pajamas. I mean, what a load of shite, and it's just that noise of all these things that people, I mean, I just go on, I'll scroll down Instagram and it's so aggressive, it's so targeted because they know exactly what I'm looking for, they know exactly what my issues are, and it's brand
Mm.
after brand, nutrition geeks and mammoth this and everything and all these things that are going to fix all your problems. And there, like you say, there is so much noise out there and everyone's an expert on it. And I did, when I posted that, I didn't want to come across and say, this is what I'm going to do because this is how I'm going to fix myself. It was
yeah,
just symptoms. And I said on the post, like, you can call out my bullshit, you can tell me your experience. And someone did come on, I don't know who that person was because I don't even remember, and said that I was catastrophizing and my language was not appropriate and all this. And I thought, fine. I put out a post and said, you want to call out my bullshit, then you do that. But that, she would say, I've just assumed she was a she. And, the things that I was reading was just grey literature, and the things that I wasn't going to try weren't scientifically tested and all this. And that was fine. I put my hands up and say, I invited you to call out my bullshit.
yeah,
Um, but
But
there was
it's
things that
not
I know
bullshit.
that, yeah.
It's your personal
Exactly.
feelings and experiences, and this is what you feel you need to do.
And that's very valid. I think it's very easy to be a keyboard warrior, and it's very easy to, judge other people based on your own inherent life experiences. And I wasn't lucky enough to be one of those women who sailed through the menopause without any symptoms. And I have huge, and I embrace the fact that, yes, there are women who do breeze through, who do, in terms of they don't get symptoms that they see. But my counter argument to that would be, well, we know that when we all go through the menopause, symptoms vary from person to person. It's a very individual journey we go on. But number one, don't judge other people from your place of kind of wellness. I think it's just not nice, that kind of quote, taking each other down. It's not kind. And I think kindness is lost, particularly on social media. But I think, we do know that with the menopause and with the dip in estrogen, there is a relative increase in terms of risk factors to our future selves. And what you were talking about, Debbie, is really relevant. You and I, we all want to be kind and think of our future selves. And from my perspective, I am passionate about HRT because I have seen it change people's life. It's changed my life. I made a very educated decision to take that on, but I'm not a one-trick pony. My whole ethos is around holistic well-being, wrapping myself with other tools in addition to HRT to allow me to live longer, but also to live well. And I think that's key, and kind of opening up the narrative to people to not judge. It's so easy, isn't it? And it just doesn't help us when we're already firefighting and we're struggling. And you were very open in your post, and it was very raw, and it touched a lot of people because they resonated with that. And I'm really tired of this societal normalization of just take people down, keyboard warrioring and the negative. It's just not necessary. Life is difficult enough. And I think when it comes to your menopausal journey, Debbie, will be very different to Kate's and very different to mine. But that's it. And they're all equally valid. I'll get off my soapbox now. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Well,
but I think when you talked about like people sailing through menopause, like I just don't believe that's possible. I think you might sail through it when you're 50 and when you stop menstruating, but I just believe that dip in estrogen is going to present itself with issues later on in life. So whether it's like you're 70 and your joints and your tendons and I think it will hit you at some point, and I think that's why I want to address it. And as I said, like I don't have all the major symptoms, so it doesn't disrupt my sleep. But and from an everyday life, if I wasn't to do sport, I'd probably be one of those people that says I haven't been hit by any menopause symptoms,
But
because going about my daily life, I feel fine. I go to run and I'm a bag
mm,
of shite. It's just because it's
well,
completely changed over the last few years.
but maybe you also, like you mentioned earlier, you talk about like your joints creak, you're stiff. I think some of it is an unhelpful narrative that we normalize getting out of bed and like struggling to stand upright and get our joints to move. Your recovery is probably now very different to what it was
Yeah.
10 years ago. And I
Hmm.
think what's really, the symptoms can often be so subtle that they just creep up on us, and we normalize that because, we are professional women, we have jobs, we are wives, we are parents, we are daughters. And I think the narrative seems to be quite unhelpful. And I think if we're in that mindset of, oh, I'm not getting the hot flushes, it's not just about hot flushes. It's those insidious symptoms where all of a sudden you'll have a really sore knee, or you'll have
Yeah.
frozen shoulder, or you'll get up in the morning like me and you'll struggle to kind of get your ankles and your feet to move, and your knees to kind of everything to kind of coordinate itself. Or you'll go out for a run and it'll be a hard fucking slog for that first couple of miles where you feel like, ugh. Or it'll be that your skin is getting really, really dry and sore, and you're getting lots of rashes in lots of places that you never even knew you could get a rash. It's so pervasive. And I think, if I was seeing you, and what I tend to do, and this might be going off topic, what I tend to do is I open up the narrative. I get women to keep a journal, to keep a log of anything that doesn't feel quite right compared to their younger self. And you can do that in a journal, or you can actually do it in a diary on your phone that can remind you. Because when you're overwhelmed, getting an extra job to do that's supposed to be about self-care, well, that's the first thing that'll go down the pan, won't it? Because it's just, we don't have time to do that. But I get women to keep just a log of all the weird and wonderful and things that they normalize on a day-to-day basis. And I give them the information about, look what happens when we approach the menopause. And for me, my own personal journey has been, I wasn't so bad in terms of menopausal symptoms until I got to my 50s. And I am medically treated. I will disclose that I have been on HRT, and personally, I will take HRT till my dying day if I can. But I've noticed, even being on HRT since turning 54, 55, my symptoms have even ramped up even more. And it's the pervasive symptoms. It's getting out of bed and going, oh my God, I'm really, really stiff. Oh my God, my scalp is tingly. My ears are itchy. I'm getting tinnitus. Did I take that medication? Did I do that properly? Forgetting things. And it's if we think about what, our estrogen levels that kind of, they peak and trough naturally as part of our hormonal cycle, but then all of a sudden they start to go down, and they wave up and down as they're going down. So we get lots of days where we get a little peak and go, oh, I'm okay, I'm not so bad. But actually the overall trend is for them to peak and trough, and then but a steady decline. And it's often women that feel that they don't develop any kind of menopause symptoms. They will often kind of get to that tipping point when they're in their 60s and 70s, and they go, where's my muscle bulk gone? How come I can't open a jar of something? I've fallen on the ground and I can't get myself up, and and it ties into what you were saying earlier about, it's future proofing ourselves in a way that, it's not a one trick pony. It's not there to fix absolutely everybody. But I think if you have enough of those subtle symptoms, then it's not unreasonable to think around the options that can help you. And HRT is one of those tools that I think every woman should have available to them. And that narrative is shifting and that's changing. But it's important to remember that it's not in isolation. There's no point being on HRT and being on a regime that is fit for you, your purpose, without, if you're going to the fridge and eating like 4 bars of chocolate and you're eating a ton of ultra processed food all of the time. We've got to kind of look at the other tools that can help us. And that will be, our sleep, what we eat, when we eat, which
Sleep.
evolves.
What is that?
Okay, yeah.
I will say I came off HRT last June. I went on it because I had to be on it to get testosterone. Because my symptoms, again, like you, Debbie, I don't have flushes, I don't have night sweats, I have anxiety, but I lost, I had no energy, just zero energy. So after consultation, they did put me on testosterone, but I had to go on HRT to be put on that. And then I don't know why, but when I rang up to renew my testosterone prescription last year, they said, no, we're taking you off it. So I thought, well,
and is this from the NHS?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just my GP.
Yeah.
Perhaps I should have said why, or perhaps I should have gone back to the consultant, because the GP can't prescribe it. You have to get it on initially from your consultant. I think that's right, isn't it, Siobhan?
It depends on which area of the country you live in, and the whole theory around testosterone is rapidly evolving, and it does seem again that there is almost like this hierarchy that testosterone for men, it follows one particular pathway, but testosterone for women follows a very different one. The teaching that we traditionally had was that you need to adequately estrogenize a woman first from that state of absolute depletion, because the theory is that actually we need to replete which will then dictate kind of what baseline level of testosterone we will be metabolizing when we're on HRT. And then if we still have symptoms of low libido, that's when it can be prescribed on the NHS, either by a GP who's comfortable and has done some training in menopause, or in some demographics, depending on kind of commissioning, you would have to be referred to a menopause specialist, which very often they are GPs who have trained in menopause. They're not necessarily always gynecologists. Ideally, if you're on if you're prescribed testosterone after your estrogen levels are repleted, then you should have a blood test at 3 months to make sure that you're not overly absorbing it and going the other way. And then have a blood test once a year. But it's only licensed in the UK for low libido. And I don't know about you girls, but being an Irish Catholic girl, going and talk to a doctor about libido is really hard.
Yeah, but it's just so wild that a woman won't be prescribed testosterone that will physically make her feel better, and the only way you can get it on the NHS is if it affects the man.
Yeah.
It's fucking wild.
Yes.
Do you know? And I think on that post, like, so many people had said, when you go to the doctor, just tell them your husband's really not getting any, and therefore they'll give you what you need. And I was just like, what?
That's shocking.
But it's like people, like, we talk about HRT like it's like everyone should get it, but everyone can't get it. It's not. And if you're like, if you've got kids and a family and a house and a mortgage, you can't pay hundreds of pounds for a consultation, and then when it runs out, pay hundreds of pounds for another consultation with your prescriptions on top of that.
Yeah.
Do you know? And that's just like, I tried HRT a few maybe 2 years ago, and I went for a consultation. I paid £300. I've got private health insurance with my work, but I wanted to go and actually physically see someone. So my private health insurance would only cover a few people that they had nominated, which I thought, well, that's brilliant. And I just wanted to say, at which point in this insurance policy is there things that affect men that they can't get? But there's fucking none. And and then I thought, well, I'm going to pay the hundreds of pounds, because I would pay hundreds of pounds for a pair of leggings. So let's just like get your health sorted, So I went and I paid this. And then 3 months later, I wanted to obviously get my next prescription. They were like, yeah, you have to come back and get another consultation. And I was like, what? I just want to.
Why didn't you go to your GP?
Because I just don't know. I just thought, I'm just going to go and see, because I just had negative communications where people had said they'd gone along, they tried to get something, they were given like a low dose that wouldn't even, take the edge off it. And I thought, well, I want to go and speak to someone, explain my situation, tell them what's happening, and I want to get something. And I didn't mind. I'm in a fortunate position where I could pay for it. So I thought, right, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And at one point I had to change the appointment because I couldn't go in person. And they were like, yeah, it's £150 to change the appointment. It's just like, what? Yeah. What? Are you joking? And then I thought, well, I'll just do it online. And then when I wanted to get a repeat prescription, I had to pay another £300 to get another appointment. And I just thought, no, I'm just not doing this. It's not what for me. I wasn't feeling any benefit, and that's why I stopped it. And then I just thought, like, people going to speak to their doctors, I've just heard so much, like having to lie and make up stories to get things that you shouldn't have to do.
Yeah, and I think some of that traditionally has been a huge unmet learning need for a lot of GPs. Yeah. And I think that is changing. I think quite a lot of practices will now have a designated like specialist in menopause that will basically see the vast majority of patients. And I would say to anybody that would watch this podcast, if you're thinking about approaching your GP, have a look on the practice website, see does anybody have an interest in women's health and menopause, because the narrative is slowly changing. And I'm very privileged. I have a brilliant GP. And it must be really hard as a GP having a GP as your patient, and someone like me as well, who's like 100 million miles an hour. But he's very, very kind. But I also had to go and see I went to see somebody privately when I kind of wanted to give testosterone a go. And what the narrative for me very much is changing, but it does still make me very, very cross when I talk to women who've been told, oh, I was offered antidepressants, or women that are going to see their doctor and they think they're getting kidney infections or urine infections. And I'm like, no, we're normalizing so much of our uncomfortableness, but actually this is all about the menopause, and actually that narrative needs to change. But I think societally that needs to change as well, and what even makes me even crosser is that when you do manage to get access to testosterone as a patient, you end up prescribed these sachets of testosterone that are meant for men. So you get this tiny sachet that's got to do you 7 days, and you've got to put out a little blob of it. So you put a blob on, and then you try and close this little sachet, which you're going to put in your cupboard and forget about it and find it 6 weeks later, because that's what happens. And the whole, but narrative again needs to shift. Why are we being prescribed a product that's actually designated for men it's not very user friendly? It's really not very user friendly. And actually, if we call it out, estrogen and progesterone are necessary, and very, very, there are lots of benefits, but it has to be very much tailored to your need and very personalized approach. The same can be said for testosterone. And I have patients who have benefited hugely, not just in terms of libido, but in terms of the energy, sleep, kind of the sense of creakiness, just feeling almost like you've got your old younger spark back. And there shouldn't be this lottery system kind of around who's going to get prescribed what, but unfortunately it still is. And that's why it's really important as women that we really advocate for ourselves. So when somebody comes to me, or if I'm talking to any of my friends, and I do talk a lot, as Kate knows, if they ask me for advice, I'm like, log all of your symptoms, journal them. It's very easy to do it. Go and be specific with your GP, read kind of the evidence, but make your own decisions. But also, go in there with the information so that you can feel like you can challenge somebody if they are out of date. And that's really, really hard when you're coming from a place of darkness, which the menopause can be for some women. But it's really, really, really important that that continues to change. And it is changing. I think it definitely is changing. But it's just trying. And when a woman goes to see a GP about the menopause, I would say, if you can at all, book a double appointment. I don't know what it's like in Scotland, but in the UK, you get 10 minutes. I would always overrun, because you cannot unpick the subtleties in a 10-minute appointment. So very often I would overrun, but that's okay, because, people need to go away empowered with all of the relevant information. But I would very often send them away with homework to do, to really get them to understand about how all-encompassing the menopause can be, but also to look at the aspects that are really, really important that they have some control over, like what they eat, what sleep strategies they put into place, because it's all a big melting soup. But actually picking off some of those and giving them time to reflect on what they can do, and let them appraise the data, and then come back quite quickly. I would always book in a follow-up appointment and say, right, okay, here you go. Let's give this a trial, but 3 months is not enough. You will need a review. But we need to think long term. We need to think much, much more about long-term gains. There should never be a quick fix. But in saying that, from a mood point of view and from an energy point of view, going on HRT, but particularly on estrogen, it can make a huge difference to mood. And I think, we need to call it out as well, that lots of women will have gone to see their GPs struggling with their mental health. But actually, if they're given time, and if you start unpicking what's actually unraveling for them, it's actually more the menopause. So I think there's still a huge unmet need. And I think that's why women, sadly, still need to advocate hugely for themselves. And don't be afraid to do that. Choose wisely who you go to see. And sometimes it's the path of least resistance. If you have private healthcare, go and see somebody, but try and get somebody that you can be personally recommended.
Yeah, that's what I've done. I've got an appointment in 2 weeks' time to see someone who has been recommended. So it's definitely a path I want to go down. But I
Mm,
think like all the things that I said in my post that I want to do, I'm not so keen on doing everything all at once because then I'll never know what does and doesn't work. And that's why I kind of want to leave it. So I've been doing my mobility and I've started on collagen, and you could probably poo-poo all of those things. But things like I wanted to increase my protein and
yeah,
take out some of the UPFs. Um,
but be
it's not
kind.
perfect. I've
Yeah,
got
I mean,
terrible sugar addiction just now. Like I can't get enough sugar. It's wild.
Oh, me
And
too. Oh,
I've just eaten
chocolate.
2 Star bars before we started.
it's just
What
like
is it?
I
What
don't
is
know.
it?
I don't know.
Well,
But
basically,
there's lots of stuff that I want to do. And I think, like you say, that journal and writing it down is probably something I want to do. Like at 50, and I got my first period when I was 14. I think I was actually quite late, maybe 15.
yeah.
And I've never had a regular cycle ever.
Okay.
When I fell pregnant with my son, like I didn't have a period for a year before that. I mean, I think at the time I could have had symptoms of rare S, but like
Mm,
I didn't know I was pregnant. I missed the first trimester because my cycle has just been like so up and down my whole life. And
yeah.
now I'm at a stage where I do still get periods, but they could be like 25 days, they could be 60 days. But I know now, like, before my period comes, the only real symptoms I get is like really tender, swollen boobs, like
Mm,
horrific. And I should know that. Whereas last week, well, maybe 2 weeks ago, like my boobs were really sore, and I went out and did a track session and fucked
oh,
my tendons. Like, and now I know, like, when those symptoms present themselves, don't go and do something crazy because your body just can't cope with it. But that's things like I'm learning now at the age of 50. That's just taken me decades, that symptoms that I've completely ignored. So I do think, like you say, writing those things down is like
mm,
would be really
mm.
beneficial for me.
I think the one thing that's, if it's the only message that people take away from today, I would say be kind to yourself. If you feel absolutely knackered, don't train, which I know
Yeah.
goes against everything. I mean, you clearly are an athlete, Debbie. I am
I
not.
was.
You are. I started running after I adopted my boys, and I had the only running I did before that was to the pub at university. So basically, so I started running in my 40s, and for me, it became part of my identity, but it became my safe space. It became my, how do I process all this shit that's going on in life? Okay, I'll go for a run and I'll come back a little bit saner. And I got really sucked into, I've got to train according to my schedule, whatever my coach sets me, I've got to do it. But actually, what I've really truly realized over particularly the last couple of years since going into my 50s was actually there will be days when I need a rest day, and that's okay. Permission to be kind to self. So I would say, those days when, your boobs are really sore, or you're going to the toilet an awful lot, and your belly is uncomfortable and you're not sure what the hell's going on, actually take a step back, you know, have a rest. I see rest and sleep as active recovery. I'm a big fan of having a nana nap, around sleep hygiene. But I think, the cumulative load that we have carried throughout our lives, it does reach a tipping point. And we are still athletes and we will always be athletes, but we need to just shift our mindset a little bit more and actually think about, okay, actually, if I drop that training day, then actually I probably physiologically will be in a better place the following day or the day after that. And I think, that kindness to self needs to happen. It's like, yeah, I'm a big fan of trying to eat really, really well. But at the same time, before we came on here, and I was like, seriously bricking it, going, oh, Jesus, I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, look, there's 2 Star bars in the fridge. Right, I'm eating those before anyone comes home. We've got to normalize we are not like, and nobody of all of those people that we see on Instagram, that's not real. That's people performing for an audience because it's their way of generating income and validating their existence. You know, we are real. Our bodies have cumulative toil that they've undertaken from very many, many, many years. And there will be days, particularly when you're in the midst of that roller coaster, when you're down in the depths in terms of your estrogen is tanked, you're not going to want to go and do a mad strength session. If you do, you're not going to perform. You're going to knacker yourself even more. And you're going to be in that negative self-behavior going, oh, I did that crap. I was crap. And as women, we're really, really, really hard on ourselves. You know, I mean, and I'm not man bashing, but most men will be go, great, I've done a session. Maybe we need to see things a little bit more from a man's perspective in terms of, you know, being kinder to ourselves. That self-care becomes more and more important. And I think what you said in your post was really important. I think for me, when I talk to people about change, I say, because, you know, if you do a big long list of all the things that you want to do, that you know is for your longevity and your well-being, most people, particularly when we're in mid-age, will get completely overwhelmed at the choice of, okay, I need to address my sleep, then I need to go to the fridge and I need to get rid of all the chocolate, and I need to make sure that I'm eating kale with breakfast, lunch and tea. We've got to make any change has to be manageable with the cumulative injury that we have sustained to date in our lives, if that doesn't sound too dramatic. And I think small changes are so much easier to be consistent with. And I think
that's why, I wanted to make tweaks. There was nothing in that wasn't completely out with the ordinary. I wasn't going to start taking up triathlon or anything like that.
Yeah.
But there were some tweaks that I could easily make. And I think that's why when I posted that, I was like, I'm going to give myself a year. It's not a quick fix because it's taken me years to get to the position that I'm in just now. And a lot of it is kind of self-inflicted. There's a lot of things that I could have done differently that would make this journey a little bit better for myself. And I think that's why I was like, I give myself a year, and it's almost like an arbitrary goal, like having these goals to do things. And I think sometimes when I have an arbitrary goal, I will stick to it.
Clearly, I mean, you don't exactly achieve what you've achieved without that. I mean, I think the core framework that I give to women when I'm talking to them is, this is the evidence around HRT. There's over 88 symptoms to date that are directly attributed to the menopause. So everybody's journey is individual. So I give them the information about what I can prescribe. But I also give the information about, ideally high protein, at least a gram per kilogram body weight, probably more for us being, doing what we do. Just eating slightly differently, ramping up the fiber so that we do feel fuller, so that our sugars, our glycemic index is not going all over the place. And that's really hard because we inherently will crave the things that we're depriving ourselves of. But it's making it manageable. And I think harnessing the things that we know that can help us, so that eating more protein, thinking around our exercise differently, really working hard at our sleep, prioritizing sleep, giving it a routine, giving it reliability, looking at evidence-based supplements. And I take evidence-based supplements. They complement what I do in my journey. But
What do you take?
Right. Well, I've got them here. So
I'm all ears.
Here we go.
So I take
ready.
I take creatine. So
yeah, I'm a big fan. Game changer.
So I've just started it.
So basically I take double the recommended dose. So most people are recommended 5 grams. Which is enough to saturate your muscles to help certainly with recovery. I take 10 grams so that actually my brain is going to get some of that creatine to try and help the terrible brain fog that I struggle with. I use a good brand. So I use a brand called Momentous, because there's a lot of shite brands out there. You get what you pay for, I think, with a lot of the supplements out there. So I look for things that are clean, that don't have additives. So I like that. I put it in my big bucket of tea that I have in the morning, because otherwise I'll forget, and it will
I'm the same.
It'll
First coffee.
Yeah. Otherwise it just sits there and it mocks me.
And then I
I
can't
take
remember if I've taken it or not.
exactly. So I take omega fish oils.
Okay.
Big fan in terms of for my joints, but for
Which
my
brand is that?
that's a Viridian. I do write some stuff for them, but basically my journey to Viridian came through triathlon. One of my best friends, his wife owns Viridian, and they had their motto is no junk, absolute no junk, no crap, no nothing, evidence based. So I've done some talks for them around kind of my journey to ultra running, and I actually have helped write a menopause journal that you can pick up from Viridian. I'm sure I've got a copy I'll keep for you the next time I'm up north. And it's just basically like a journaling diary that talks about the evidence around the supplements and the nutrients that can help. So it's about holistic well-being. So omega-3 fish oils for my brain and my joints. I take magnesium, but I take it in a little liquid.
Right.
Now, magnesium is
Sorry, can I ask
Mm,
one question? Just looping back
mm,
to the omega-3. So when I've done like my AI search for things that are going to help my tendons, so obviously I've got creatine, which I've been taking for a year. I don't know if the one I'm taking is any good. I got it from My Protein. It's a Clear Pure one that Stacey Sims bangs on about, and that is the only reason why I bought it. I haven't had any adverse effects with it. It seems to work for me, so I'll stick with that. But when I read like omega-3 can also help your tendons and
mhm.
your muscles, is this true?
There is some kind of encouraging evidence that suggests that it is useful.
Right.
I primarily use it in terms of for the brain impact, for the cognition, almost like while we can't future proof ourselves against kind of dementia, we do know that eating a diet high in omega-3 fats is really, really good for tendons, which are avascular. So once they start to get tight, they get tight. And the omega fish oils are evidence-based that they can be useful for that. The impact on the brain is huge. So one of my subspecialties is that I'm a GP with a specialist interest in ADHD and autism,
Mm-hmm.
and it has a huge, and I recommend it to all of my families when I see, and my son takes it as well. He's got ADHD, and it does. There's enough robust evidence out there to make me go, I'm taking that. And if I can demonstrate to myself that I'm taking it, I will tell my patients about it, but I'll caveat it with, I can't prescribe these. This is what I've researched and this is my lived experience. And I think it's really important that actually when, as doctors, we see patients, we do talk about our lived experiences. So omega-3 fish oils, definitely, I have
Okay.
found that creakiness. Magnesium, I like magnesium for sleep. I do take it in the evening time. The other kind of much more the pleasant kind of side effect I've found from it, when you do the odd time when I go out and I do like a fast run, that I run all the way, that I'm not just walk, run, eating food, yakking to people, but when you run all the way from the beginning to the end, I mean, I'll get awful stiffness afterwards, and that intrudes
Right.
my sleep.
Yeah.
I find with magnesium, and I like this because I put it into a little wee drink, so it's part of my nighttime bedtime routine. And I have been very strict around creating a nighttime routine because routine helps sleep. So there's reasonable evidence to suggest that magnesium is helpful in terms of particularly for sleep, and sleep is often something that goes off in the menopause. So they're the ones. I mean, I keep it fairly simple. I mean, I have protein powder in the cupboard. It's a bit hit and miss because I'd much rather get my protein from real food rather than have to have a
Mm.
powder. But when I'm panicking, like 4 weeks before a big race, and I'm going, shit, then I will basically ramp up the protein powder. And ironically enough, my mum fell in Glasgow last summer and broke her hip, and this was her
Oh, bless her.
third fracture that she's had in the last kind of couple of years. And two of those were in Glasgow, actually, ironically enough. And she's lost an awful lot of muscle mass. And actually, this weekend, when I was telling her a wee bit about what we were going to do today, And she was like, well, I never had HRT. I just got on with it. And I'm like, Mum, that narrative is really unhelpful. Can you open this jar? Oh, no, I can't. Jesus, no, I can't do that. And can you stand up without using your hands? Oh, Jesus, Mary, no, I can't. And I said, well, I don't want to be like that. And actually, so I've put her on protein powder to
Oh, good.
actually
Can
just
Okay.
she,
try.
can you, I've heard this thing about that you can't start HRT sort of after a certain amount of time post menopause.
Well, I have a lot to say on that. I think the guidance is, and we all try and work to best practice. So the British Menopause Society is like the gold standard in terms of both the training that it provides to GPs and the education that it offers to GPs. So the guidance suggests that ideally we shouldn't be starting it over the age of 60 unless we have had a very frank discussion about the pros and cons of HRT and set a realistic time frame. And, and it's like prescribing any medication. You've got to be very realistic in terms of why am I prescribing this? What do I want to achieve with this? So, and we do know that with HRT, if we are going to put somebody on HRT, the best time where we can capture and and harness the benefit of it is when we're younger. So ideally in our 40s and 50s. Once you get over the age of 60, you don't get as much bang for your buck, so to speak, but there are still gains to be made. But it comes with relative risks as well. And the key, I think, for anybody thinking about going on HRT is that there needs to be a grown-up adult peer-to-peer discussion, not a hierarchical discussion of a doctor telling somebody what they can and cannot have. It's got to be a discussion with absolute disclosure of all of the positives and the risks that come with, because medications come with risks. That needs to be attuned to the patient's personal history, their medical history, their family history, but also the big thing is address what are their expectations as well. Is HRT going to be the right fit at that age? So many years ago it was like over 60, no chance of HRT. That narrative has shifted now, but we just need to be very realistic and we have to be very open as GPs in terms of the gains and the negatives, and actually what's prompted this, what's prompted somebody in their 60s to come and see me, what's going on, what's unraveling. So the devil will be in the detail of that consultation and kind of unpicking that. And one of the things that I probably should have said at the very beginning is that our journey, every woman's journey through the menopause, is individual to us. How we manifest our symptoms is individual to us. There will be times in our lives when our symptoms are more problematic than others. And a lot of that alludes to everything else that we have going on in terms of our jobs, our well-being, our mental health, our families, grief, redundancy, parental illness. It's important that whenever you go and see somebody, they actually tailor it to you and your needs. And your needs, Debbie, would clearly be very different to my needs and to Kate's needs, but they're all very valid. And that needs time. And it's important that we as women are open and honest with our GPs.
But if so, essentially, for us to gain the most benefit from HRT, we need to start it sort of earlier and stay on it. Um, so
Yeah,
starting it late, you can't. It's almost like the stable doors open now and the horse is gone.
The
yeah,
horse has
yeah,
got one foot out the door. I mean, what I've read recently, I think like the new research and literature around it is it's more beneficial if you start probably in your early to mid 40s
yeah, I
and
would
then
agree with
follow
that.
it through when there is a dip that starts rather than like me, I'm 50 and now the things are really presenting themselves, even though it's been kind of going on for 2 or 3 years.
Mm,
So yeah, I
mm.
think like, I keep
Yeah,
saying to people like when they turn 40, read this, do this, because I wish I had this information when I turned 40 and rather waiting.
yeah.
So,
It's
shit
so
hit the
hard though,
fan that
isn't it?
I start finding out. But I think people's lives are just so busy. Like when you're 40, you're not really thinking about the menopause, are you? That's like for old people, like ages away. And then it
Yeah,
just kind of
Totally. Yeah.
creeps up in you. And at 40, you don't want to admit you're menopausal, right? It's kind of like I'm still
yeah.
young and fresh and virile and yeah. But
And
I
that's
think like I
yeah.
wish I'd done all that like a decade ago.
I'm
I
hoping I
think
haven't messed myself up now by being off it for the last 7 months.
I don't think so. I think, I think in terms of we do, I think that as a society, we really, as women, when we own some of that, we need to think about what does aging mean to us? Why should we have a sense of shame about feeling menopausal and saying we're menopausal? So all kudos to you, Debbie, for putting that article out on Instagram, because I think it was really brave. And I think society expects us to be young, to look young, to conform to all of these kind of weird kind of Instagram algorithms of what we should look like. And I think we need to own that a little bit more. So I think having that discussion and kind of going, okay, this is, I am aging, and yeah, it is a privilege to age, but it's also bloody hard, and it can feel really, really, really hard, at times based on your symptoms. And I think, being proactive rather than reactive about your health, I think is so, so important. And I think, as a society, we are getting there. I think there are enough people out there, talking about it. And I think it was 2 years ago, I did a wee podcast for the Tea and Trails, just talking about what my journey was, what I do and what I say to people as a GP, what other measures do I harness? How do I navigate that? And it was really, really interesting. I went to loads of races after that where people walked up to me and said, I know you. And I'm like, oh shit, what from? Did I cut you up in the car, or what did I do? And they're like, you're the woman that talked about the menopause. You're the woman with the cuckoo clock and the sneezing cat. And I'm like, that's me. But just the ability to be able to normalize the discussion around it, but actually come at it from a positive point of view. Yeah, the symptoms are shite when they're shite. And none of us want to get older, but actually we're here, we're navigating this. How exciting that we are getting older. We can harness all these different tools to try and help us. And we can really change the narrative by going out and doing badass, really difficult races. I mean, for God's sake, Debbie, look at what you've achieved. It's just, if you look back 50 years ago, and if you said to your mother 50 years ago, right, ma'am, go off and do that 300-mile, whatever you've done, they'd be like, no, women don't do that, men don't do that, but you bloody did it, didn't you? And I
Yeah,
think,
no, but let's, I'll put another spin on that. It's all very well me sitting here saying I've done all these amazing things, but I also compare my body right now from when I did all those amazing things, and it doesn't make the journey any easier
yeah,
because I've got this amazing past. It
yeah,
still makes the present like
hard.
so much difficult because like I can go out and go, shit, I used to be able to
I
run a
used to be able to
marathon
do
at that price.
this.
I used to be able to do that. I used to feel
Yeah,
like this. But I also
it is.
think sometimes like you've got rose colored spectacles because you always think all sessions were hard, but you think, oh, they used to be so much easier. No, they fucking didn't. They used to be just really
Yes,
hard as well. But I
yes,
think for me, I think we live in a society now where it's all quick fixes. It's weight loss jabs, it's aesthetics, it's everyone wants everything perfect now. It's Amazon delivery, like it's
yeah,
24-hour this, and everyone wants a super quick fix. But for me now, I genuinely am thinking not just about the race that I'm doing in the summer. I'm thinking about in 10 years' time. I still want to be doing this. Like I want to run
mm,
forever. I want to be that person that's holding up the checkpoints because they want to close. I still want to be a runner. I still want to enjoy running and being outside for the rest of my life. And I think
mm,
now it's really come to head where there's loads of things that I need to address. And I'm sitting here talking about, I wish I'd done this when I was 40. I wish I'd known this when I was 40. But I
yeah,
don't want to be having that conversation when I'm 60, thinking,
yeah.
why didn't I take that when I was 60? Why didn't I get off my ass and stop sitting down for 10 hours a day? So that was the things that I really want to be addressing now. So I'm not having that conversation with
Yeah,
myself a decade down the line.
I get that,
Mm.
and I think it's really, really important. I mean, I'm very similar in that I've looked back and gone, because obviously the Northern Traverse is coming up quite soon, and I'm like, God, I did that 2 years ago. How the feck did I do that? Jesus. And it wasn't hard. It was just like a great big lollop from one side of the country to the other.
You forget how really hard
Yeah,
it was at the time.
actually. And I
You're like,
think
oh, it was a great big adventure. I loved it. No, you didn't.
no, it was hard, and there was snot and tears, and there was, like, accidentally mooning lorries from the side of the road. Actually, I think you tap on something, and I think it's, the past is the past. And I think we're very, very good at analyzing and being harsh about our lives today. I think we have to be kind to ourselves. Yeah, I wish I was looking after myself and I wasn't going out caning it, drinking in the college bar, and, putting bottles of booze up in trees when I thought it was such a good idea to do that and come back and find. But we've lived our lives well. We have the privilege of being here and now. We
Yeah.
still we have enough health and well-being to be able to unpick some of the shite that is out there, to call out the noise. And actually, we can own now, and we have enough knowledge and tools that we can actually help our future selves. And that's a real place of privilege, I think, to be. And, there is no point in regret. I think it's the one thing. I've had some fairly significant life challenges that I've navigated over the last couple of years. And I am the first one to always be really harsh and compare and compare and compare and go, why didn't I do that? And, oh, if I had done that, and if I had done that. But you know what? We made whatever decisions we made when we were younger with the best intentions at that time. And there is no point in holding on to that regret. It just takes up too much space in our brains when actually we're struggling with brain fog. We need to be really specific, but we really need to be kind. I think being kind to our future selves is incredibly important. And I keep coming back to that, but I just feel it's really important. Sorry, I
Yeah.
sound like a
I don't
broken
think I
record.
don't think I've got to that bit yet. I'm like still in the camp where I'll just do an easy 10 miler and I'll sort me out.
I still
Yeah,
try.
I think yeah,
I'll be
I think
like,
Debbie's
I'll just
definitely.
run it off.
Oh goodness, it's interesting,
Yeah.
isn't it? I think the other trouble, the difficulty with finding your own path in whatever that is that it takes so long to these the subtle changes, whether it's HRT, whether it's changing your diet. It takes months for those changes to take effect. And
But
then,
I think
I
it's
said,
taken you months to get there as well. So it's going to take
yeah,
you
Yeah.
taking
months.
you months,
Yeah.
taking you months.
It's
And
just
I don't have
time.
all this time to waste seeing,
Like quick fixes.
let me try
Yeah.
0.5 milligrams of HRT. We'll review that, and then 6 months down the line, well, I don't feel any different. Okay, well, let's up it to 1 milligram. And it's like, I'm 2 years down the line now.
It is about getting to that sweet spot in terms of kind of getting positive impact from the medication, but also it's the cumulative consistent. I mean, if I said to you, Kate,
It is.
oh, be consistent with your training, be consistent with your training plan, you'd have no bother with that. But it's when it comes to, okay, be consistent with your sleep hygiene, you'd go, what the heck is she talking about now? But I think it is about kind of building those layers of consistency in every aspect of our lives. And I'm a big fan of sleep and sleep hygiene. And I've read a lot about sleep. I've people that come to talk to me because sleep is one of the first things that will go, both in the menopause, but just with life in general. And it took me years upon years upon years to actually believe all of the writing around sleep hygiene and practice it as well. So I do think, we do
Okay,
have to
so
be
I need to
consistent.
tell me sleep hygiene. I wake up at between 2 and 3 every night, and I have this massive impending sense of doom. And then I go through everything that I've got to do that I haven't done, all my worries, everything gets nick, picked over, and then around 5 I go back to sleep. And then I feel really great at about 8 when I wake up again. So tell
Yeah.
me, give me some sleep hygiene tips.
Okay, so I think one of the biggest things is about building a routine, building consistency. So routine above all else is the key. And particularly ideally from childhood, we need to have this systematic approach to creating our active recovery time. So having a routine, be it, I don't have time for baths or showers, but we do know that kind of creating a room that is quiet, that is completely dark, that we basically identify as only for sleep. It shouldn't be for work. It shouldn't be for doing podcasts. It shouldn't be for watching things on iPads. Ideally, it should be a calming environment. It should be cool, but paradoxically, for a lot of us, even menopausal women, we often need to raise our body temperatures just a tiny little bit to get warm. So hence when people talk about having a warm bath, it just raises your core temperature just a teeny weeny bit. I don't have time for a bath, so I have like a heated throw that I put on for like half an hour so that I'm getting into a warm bed. It's pitch black in my bedroom. I go to bed at the same time pretty much every evening, and it annoys the living daylights out of everybody else because that time is getting earlier and earlier, and I'm waking earlier. But I prefer that because I need my sleep. I've had to prioritize sleep after years of just sleeping very poorly. So the environment needs to be restful, peaceful, without any clutter. Phones need to be on downtime, if not out of your bedroom, ideally, because again, and it's not about the UV light of electronic devices in our bedrooms. It's about they stimulate our brains, and particularly when we're in that menopausal phase, the whole the brain changes sometimes feel almost like what ADHD feels like in terms of how we feel from a brain perspective. So getting all the electronics, getting off them, curtailing social media, particularly for the hours before bed, which has been an incredibly hard thing. But actually coming off all of that doom scrolling that will just absorb us, because our brain needs to be in a state of calmness getting ready for bed and not heightened, not worried, not triggered by all the shite we've seen online, but not worried about trying to sleep as well. When I get into bed, I do box breathing. So I'm a big fan of nasal breathing. I've kind of read quite a lot around it. I'm thinking about maybe doing one of those nasal breathing courses but to use it for training and running. But I'm a big fan of nasal breathing when I sleep. So I find that I sleep better. I look totally sexy. I have a blackout eye mask so that no light will permeate my corneas at nighttime at all, but it gives me that sense of comfort and it locks out all the light. It's silk, obviously, because I want to age well. Then I use mouth tape because for me, I find nasal breathing really centers me and calms me down. And then I do the box breathing exercises and I use meditations. There's an app that I use, Insight Timer, which I find those really, really beneficial. And it's interesting, like I've been spouting this to my patients for many, many, many years and kind of gone, we should it fucking work for me. But cumulative load, I think, has really, really helped me. And the magnesium at nighttime, I found, has been a real game changer. For me, if I wake up in the middle of the night, I don't stay in bed tossing and turning, I just get up. And I think the evidence certainly around sleep studies and sleep hygiene is that actually if you do wake, you're as well off to get up and do something and then go back to bed.
Oh, really? I thought it was the opposite.
Yeah. So there's a guy who's local to me, a GP, who kind of has the Sleep Project. He basically has done an awful lot of research around sleep, and they do podcasts. I'll send a link through to you. And Aidan has talked an awful lot about sleep, and I've learned a lot from kind of their podcasts. But I've learned a lot about sleep and kind of how to try and navigate that just by actually talking to parents of children who have neurodevelopmental disorders. So I've done kind of a real deep dive, and I've spoken to lots of people around sleep. And I was challenged by a sleep kind of professor recently when he was talking about the role of melatonin, and I've dipped in and out of melatonin a lot. We produce melatonin naturally in our brain to encourage us to go to sleep, and I have used it. You can buy it in other countries, and I've dabbled in it at times kind of when my sleep has been absolutely awful. But I know for me that the things that have really kind of, and I thought HRT would fix my sleep. It did help it in that I wasn't waking like I, drenched wet. But I definitely found that my sleep is better with that regularity of thinking to myself, okay, bed, bedroom kind of nighttime routine, prioritize that, and I irritate everybody in the house with kind of the fact that I am so precious about it. But for me, I think sleep is active recovery. And I think even more now when we reach midlife, because our needs are more, the cumulative load that we put our bodies and our minds through, particularly when we're training for big events, and all of the mental load that we carry as working women and parents, I think we need that active recovery. And I don't fear sleep as much as I used to. And there's been an evolution in terms of, there's always been real negatives associated with medications that can help sleep. And there are some newer medications out there now that are licensed to help with sleep, that are completely different types of medications to like the old-fashioned Zopiclone sleep medications, Valiums and whatnot. So I think medicine is getting more sophisticated at coming up with newer products that can be prescribed. But in an ideal world, working on or sleep hygiene, I think, is absolutely key. But also recognizing that our sleep needs will be very individual. So all three of us will have very, very different requirements and needs, and I think it's actually, we take our time to consider how we prepare our breakfasts and our lunches and our dinners, and we look forward to those. And there is all of the pomp and ceremony around setting the table and sitting down together. Actually give that respect to our sleep as well. It's incredibly important. But yeah, the Sleep Project is definitely worth looking at some of their podcasts that are really interesting.
Okay, thank you. How's your sleep,
Debbie? I sleep like a champion.
Yeah. I go to sleep like that, but yeah, I just can't.
I've got an Aura health ring that tracks my sleep, and my two friends, we've got a WhatsApp group, and I just send them screenshots of this blank line.
Wow, it's a gift.
And they're like, "How do you sleep like that?" Oh, but yeah, I do. But I do prioritize sleep. Like I regularly, I very much on early bed, early up. And it drives my husband nuts because he'll be like, "We've got like 7 minutes left in this episode," and I'm like, I can't cope. I need to go. Yeah. And as soon as I hit the pillow, I'm out cold, and I sleep pretty much solid. I do sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and have those thoughts about something that happened 15 years ago that had a completely different outcome. But yeah, and then as soon as my alarm goes off in the morning, I'm straight out of bed. I'm a morning person. Like I love.
You? Oh,
yeah. No. So as soon as my alarm goes, I'm just bounce out of bed. And I do think it's just like, because I do get up early, then by the time it gets to like 9, 10 at night,
you're properly tired.
Yeah. So I work away quite a lot. So I work in London quite a lot during the week. And like my favorite thing is just like bed snacks. And then I go to sleep at 8 o'clock. Yeah. And then I'm like up at 5 and I go for my nice long run and I do all that before I have to go to work. And nothing makes me happier than going to bed at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of, it's just one of the things that, again, I think people, we've done it ourselves, haven't we, when we've been our younger selves and we've been out in the lash and we've kind of been burning the candle at both ends. But actually, it is one of those things that you reach a tipping point, I think, in life where your need for sleep does exponentially go up. And I think particularly if you're up and you're out batting out your 10 miles in the morning before most people have even gotten out of bed, your need, it's about, and I think but it's not an easy fix. And I think we do exist in a society that wants easy fixes, and sleep, it's not an easy fix, but it's important. It's so important.
But I do think everything is connected. Like, I said at the beginning, like I don't have the classic menopause symptoms that you would associate. And I do think that's down to exercise and sleep and eating well, that I've kind of avoided all the major things that are life debilitating, whereas the symptoms I have are running debilitating. But that's an important part of my life. So therefore it does impact my life.
Absolutely. And I think, and I think that's really, important. We do know that exercise is really, really good for us. And I think it's often, and I talk to kind of my patients about, like, if somebody comes to see me and they're struggling with their mood, the first thing that I always go to is like, well, how do you move? What exercise do you do? And I do say to them, did you realize that the first line treatment for mild to moderate mood disorders is exercise? And they look at me like I've got two heads, because it's really hard sometimes to do that. But sometimes actually people come with the idea of, I'd much rather prefer a medication Whereas
Yeah.
personally, I would much rather that actually you invested in your future self and get out and move and move, and
And
that will
quite
stimulate.
often the elephant in the room is the alcohol intake. Like I know people who have got I can't sleep because of the menopause. I'm starting to have panic attacks because of the menopause. This, that, and the next thing about the menopause. And I'm sitting there going, it's the wine. Do you know? It's like the elephant in the room is you fucking drink
Yeah.
too much. What are you doing? And it's kind of like I feel low, I'm gonna drink. I can't sleep, I'm gonna drink. I feel like I've had the stress and anxiety and all. It's just like this circular thing. But you could say the same about me. Like I need to go for a run and then I moan because my tendons hurt and it's
But
just like a different
that's what
addiction.
but we're designed to do that. I think
Yeah.
a lot of problems are that we're, society today, as human beings, we're designed to run, to hunt, and to farm. That's what happened, in the caveman days. Now we don't need to chase our food. So A, our brain, our bodies are, dysfunctional, and B, our brains are getting dysfunctional because everything's just there,
I
as you
know.
say,
You
there's
don't
sort of
even need to think. You just go and ask
that
AI.
you just,
You
yeah,
know?
ask AI, buy it on Amazon, and it's delivered to you,
Yeah.
and you don't need. So I think, yeah, mentally and physically, a lot of issues can be put down to the fact that we just don't use either of them anymore.
No. And like I say, like I top and tail exercise and then I sit for 10 hours a day. And I think like most of my issues are down to my sedentary life. And that
Yeah.
sounds bonkers because I'm an ultra runner, but I either run or I drive. Like I don't really walk or go anywhere, or I sit and that's it. And
Yeah,
sometimes like I've listened to a podcast where they were saying like, doing that top and tail thing is actually worse for you than smoking because your
Yeah.
body just like adapts to that sitting. And then when you go and ask it to do something after it's been sitting, it's kind of, you're just causing yourself more damage and you'd be better off not exercising if you're sitting for that long.
It's
So that is part of my
yeah,
thing, like just to get up and move around and do more. That's
yeah,
just, you sit with your legs crossed, you're over a laptop, you've
mm.
got a screen, you've got this, and it's just that distorted way that you sit
yeah,
for so
yeah.
long.
Can
I
you
mean,
have a standing desk?
yeah.
Oh, the thing is, I love sitting.
Well,
My friend said that. She was like, get a standing desk. And I was like, yeah, but sitting is my favorite thing to do. I've
I
actually
do.
got a kneeling seat now
Oh
that I
yeah,
got a week ago.
it's good for your
Uh,
back, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, the first couple of days I was like, oh, this feels a bit weird because it's just not used to sitting in it. But now I just find it so comfortable. And I think my hamstrings, like my physio said, my hip flexors are ruined. Like they just don't function. They're pretty weak. And he said that is just caused by sitting for so long and not
Really.
using them. And that's, I mean, the kneeling thing is just absolutely not the best solution. I get that. But for me just now, I find that it's helping a little bit. But yeah, it doesn't take away
Mm.
from the elephant in the room that I just sit here for so long.
I tell you what,
Yeah.
working in a shop, it's knackering. I mean, every time I go back to the shop and I do 2 or 3 days on the trot, I am
Yeah.
exhausted at the end of it. It's
Yeah, yeah.
definitely time on feet training.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I kind of I sit down predominantly, and then I've used the standing desk, but I think that can sometimes be quite intimidating to people to come in, particularly to come in to see a GP, and they're like stood there
Yeah.
going, "Hello," with jazz hands and all that, and they're just like, "What on earth is she on?" I've not tried the kneeling thing, but I suppose that'd be like going to an Irish mass, wouldn't it? I mean, I do struggle whenever I go home and I go to mass the
Oh,
very
you're
day.
not on your knees. You're not on
Oh,
your knees.
are you
Oh,
not?
yeah, you're actually it's I think the brand's called Ergomist. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. And yeah, they're doing a half price sale just now. I would definitely check it out.
Yeah.
They also do like standing desks. And when it came, I was like, oh God, this looks like an instrument of torture. And how long am I? But I've been, yeah, every day. And now when I sit on it, I actually look forward to sitting on it because I just feel it
My
Yeah.
mum had
supports my
one.
body better.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
swore by it.
Yeah. So
I
there you
think,
go.
yeah, I think it's working with the kind of the changeables that we can put in our work environment because we work for a huge portion of our lives compared to
Yeah.
like, well, whatever our mothers would have. My mum worked at home and kind of trying to rear four of us. And I think, but I'm sat down an awful lot more than I ever used to be. And every time I go to stand up, it's like, oh, geez, oh my God, can I straighten up? So now I will often say to patients, oh, do you want to stand up? Do you want to move around the place? Because actually, if I don't move, I just feel worse. And I've now started setting alarms on my watch to and I actually obey them now. And I get up, and even if it's just going to say hello to people, because did I mention I talk an awful lot? So I'll often go and I'll go,
Really?
oh, I know. And I'll go and I'm going, how is everyone? Blah, blah, blah. And half of it is I like the social communication, but I just need to move. And being sat all
Yeah.
day is not. It's not what we're genetically made to do. We're made to hunt and gather and move, and So I
And
think,
also, if you've got arthritis and yeah, I
yeah,
But
cannot I
I
cannot
think
remain still. Or I
But I
just
think
sort of
this high, but obviously during lockdown when everyone was at home and then a lot of people in that hybrid working thing, which I do. And I noticed like when I'm in the office, I move so much more, like just looking at
mhm,
my step count. And you just think, I haven't really done anything different from what I've done at home, other than the fact I've come into the office and, you go to the toilet and you go to the kitchen and you go and chat to someone, you go into meetings and then you physically get to the office. And it's just, there's so much more movement. Whereas when I work at home, I ran this morning, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to a circuits class tonight, and then I'll come back and sit and watch Netflix. So
mm,
a lot of people, I mean, I do have a hybrid, but a lot of people, I know a lot of people who just work at home now.
yeah.
oh
I
God,
don't know anyone who's back in like full time.
yeah.
But I do find with this chair, like you say, when you get up, like that, oh my God, like trying to get everything to stretch and straighten and get your
Mm,
hips and your joints to move. I don't feel when I get up, I have that same
Mm.
issue. So there you go.
yeah,
I'm now a convert.
but I
Eddie
think,
uses one as well. I messaged her and I was like, I've just got a chair, and I sent her a picture and she goes, I've got the exact same one in the exact same
oh,
colour. So there you
oh,
go.
I'll have to have a look. That and an ur. Although I like the idea of having stuff that can help me to function. I think for me, the biggest challenge is being consistent with it. I'm very good at kind of go, oh, I'll get that. And then I'll just sit there and it will taunt me and go, you're not using me. It's like the supplements. My supplements journey has been very slapdash, but getting consistency with finding something
Mm.
and that I don't use it as another stick to beat myself with and kind of go, oh, you're not doing that and you should be doing that. You're a failure. And it's like, actually, no. But I think it's those little tweaks that can actually have, huge, huge, huge impact. And I think it's, yeah. And I think my key message about anything that we've talked about today is it's that consistency, but also the kindness to self and recognizing that our bodies have evolved and we're very
Mm.
privileged. We are in our 50s. You're not in your 50s yet, Kate, but you'll get there. And I
I'm
think,
55 this year.
go away. Wow.
Yes.
I can say I'm still older than you though. But I just think what a what a great we're in our 50s and we're alive and we have all of this knowledge, and yes, we do need to apply it and we need to think around ways around consistency, but what a bloody privilege, what a bloody
Mm.
privilege. And then
It's
talking
true.
about going off and doing these mad races and and you just think, are
Yeah.
we lucky? I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
reframing things is incredibly important as well, and that's I think that becomes even more important as we get older and face more and more challenges. And on that note, I probably should shut up because I would
I
keep
think,
you all
I
day.
think, yes, I think that's probably a very good place to end. Positive, and uplifting. And yeah, thank you both
I
so,
think
so
we will
much.
all continue to show up the best
And
version of ourselves. And that's all you
yeah,
can do, right?
and
Yep.
continue the conversation in any way.
Absolutely.
Normalize it. And I think,
Yeah.
certainly I'm really glad we're doing this today. And, and if you want me to do like face to face, kind of even just chats, either with Run Ultra or with whatever your group is in Glasgow, because I go to
Yeah.
Glasgow a fair bit. And if you just want like even just to have like an informal, just chin wag with somebody who can talk the talk, who has the lived experience, who will call out the bullshit, then I'm happy to do that because I think,
That'd be great.
it's all about lifting each other
Yeah.
up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Harnessing
Yes.
We
our
at Wild Hearts Runners, we had for World Menopause Day, we kind of all got together, we did a run, and then we went back to this hall. We all brought some home bacon. And I think there was maybe about 40 women who stayed on for the chat. And honest to God,
Wow.
it was
Wow.
hilarious. Just
Oh
like
my goodness.
we just went round the room and we were just howling with laughter. You know, it was just so funny. Like people being like brutally honest about things, and it was
But
just
you
like
have to be.
Oh
And
my
it was
don't
goodness. Is
so
there a
funny.
menopause day? When's World Menopause Day?
know, it's a few
October
weeks,
the
or a few
16th, I
weeks
think
ago.
it is. Yeah, October
When?
the 16th or something like that. 18th maybe.
October.
But,
Okay.
don't limit it to World Menopause Day. Just kind of go, right. And I
Mm.
think it's really, I mean, I share an office in my second job, and oh, bless the girls. I mean, everything I'm always going on about it, but for a very valid reason. I think we just need to normalize that and just, not let it define us. I think that's key. Not let it define our future selves. Right, I'll stop.
Absolutely. Right.
Thanks.
Thank you both so much.
Bye.
Bye.